Good morning, everyone. This is John Kogan. I'm the CEO of Proformative, the online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. First, I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Best Practices and Current Trends in Optimizing the Financial Close and Reporting. Most finance executives say that closing faster is important, yet Ventana Research's just completed Fast Close Trends benchmark study shows that on average, companies are actually taking longer now to close their books than in the past. The research points to several reasons why that's happening and offers insights into the best ways to speed it up. This webinar will focus on current and emerging technologies, techniques, and processes that can enable your company to close its monthly, quarterly, and annual books more quickly and accurately. Attendees will also discover how to define the value proposition for improving existing processes, information, and systems within their organizations, including ensuring compliance with both internal and external reporting requirements. I would love to thank SAP for helping us make this event possible. As folks on the phone know, you didn't pay anything for this event nor for anything that Proformative does, and it's thanks to the support of wonderful companies like SAP that allows us to do that. Now, a quick note on today's agenda before we get started. We will hear presentations from two speakers, and then we will move to a panel discussion where we will spend the remainder of our hour. We would like this to be an interactive experience for you. So if you have any questions at any time, please go to the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel and send us your questions. And if you take a look at your control panel right now, you will see there's a little area there entitled questions. Just click to open that. If it's not already open, ask them at any time. Now, we will probably hold all questions until we get to the panel conversation at the end, but we will do our best to get to all questions asked given the time we have allotted. We will send out a link to a soft copy of today's presentation. It's actually already posted on the Proformative website, and you'll be able to get to it for free with just a click on that link. We're also offering CPE credits for the CPAs in today's audience. Therefore, we will be asking two brief poll questions during today's event, so be on the lookout for those. And even if you're not here for CPE credit, we would love for you to take 20 seconds and answer the polling questions. They actually have interesting statistical data. The questions are broad questions about technology and processes, and I think it'll be interesting for all of us to look at the shared results, and we will share that during the Q&A. Now, a quick word on Proformative. For those that are new to Proformative, we're the largest and fastest growing online resource for senior finance, treasury, accounting, and related professionals. We're actually over 500,000 of these folks get online, and they simply ask and answer questions for one another. It's a completely ad-free, noise-free network, and it's a wonderful resource. Speaking as a four-time CFO myself, it's something I wish I had through my career, so please feel free to check us out at proformative.com. And with that preamble, I'd like to go ahead and introduce us all to today's first speaker. His name is Rob Kugel. He's a CFA, and he's the SVP and Research Director at Ventana Research. So Rob heads up the CFO and Business Research practice at Ventana, focusing on the intersection of information technology and the finance organization, along with broader business applications. The financial performance management research agenda includes the application of IT to financial process optimization and collaborative systems, control systems and analytics, and advanced budgeting and planning. Rob also covers the areas of GRC and sustainability that span across business and IT. Prior to joining Ventana, he was an equity research analyst at several firms, including First Albany Corporation, Morgan Stanley, and Drexel Burnham, and a consultant with McKinsey & Company. Rob was an Institutional Investor All-American team member and on the Wall Street Journal All-Star list. So with that, Rob, welcome, and please take us away.
Thanks, John. This is the third time Ventana Research has done a broad assessment of the accounting close. The first was in 2004, and the second was 2007. Our main objective was, once again, to document the closing process, identify the key business issues companies face, and assess best practices. Moreover, this time we also wanted to do a rigorous comparison between the state of closing today and 5 years ago. We were hoping that the results would demonstrate progress, companies closing faster. Instead, as you pointed out in the introduction, the results were disturbing, and actually very disturbing, because instead of showing progress, the benchmark revealed that companies are taking longer to close today than 5 years ago. 5 years ago, nearly half were able to close their quarter within 6 business days. Today, just 38% are able to do so. Similarly, 5 years ago, 70% of companies were able to close their monthly books in 6 days. Today, only half can. It's taking longer despite the fact that 8 out of 10 companies believe closing their books quickly is important or very important. It's taking longer despite the fact that participants know they can cut the time it takes their company to close. And this isn't by any shot a new issue. Everyone agreed decades ago that faster closes were important. So why are companies taking longer to close? Why is it after all this time some companies are able to close quickly and others aren't? Well, looking at the 3 sets of data, I have to conclude that it comes down to determination and competence. Well-managed finance organizations are able to close within 5 to 6 business days. Others aren't. One thing that's clear from the data is that companies with exactly the same characteristics can have very different closing periods. Take 2 companies exactly the same size, in the same industry, operating in the same geographies, with the same IT infrastructure. One of them can close their books in 3 days, the other 11. Why? Well, I believe that for the fast closers, it's the determination to close the books quickly and the management confidence to make it happen. Now, there may be many other factors at work, but I believe those are the 2 that count most. So why not close within 5 to 6 business days? Many sources have been proven it costs nothing. In fact, closing faster may save money because it's more efficient. And closing faster means that management and financial accounting is available sooner, when it's more actionable. For companies that have to file financial reports with third parties, having extra time means having more time to complete analyses and narratives. And even more to the point, how fast a company closes its books is, I think, a pretty useful metric for the overall effectiveness of the CFO and controller. An effective finance team can tackle the root causes of a slow close. This might be broken processes, poor data management, or unnecessary complexity. An effective CFO figures out how to deal with the issues. An ineffective one accepts a "we've always done it this way" mentality that prevents necessary change from happening. Now, there may be many reasons why a company takes more than a week to close, but I think there are no excuses. There's also a lot of talk about strategic finance transformation these days. In other words, improving the strategic value of the finance organization within a company. Well, I think any company that takes more than 5 or 6 business days to close clearly demonstrates that it's not in a position to be strategic. It's hard to become strategic when you don't have the basics down. Closing faster should be a priority for companies that take more than a business week to complete the accounting cycle. Once upon a time, closing just meant the accounting close. However, that's just the first step in what some call the extended close, the full set of activities that start with closing the books but extends to the completion of the full analysis and reporting cycle. This includes generating management reports that utilize accounting data and creating the financial reports for internal or external purposes. The external reports may be contractually required by lenders or lien holders, or required by regulations such as the quarterly 10Q or annual 10Ks in the United States by the SEC, or similar filings required by the Canadian Securities Administrator. I point this out because increasingly people are beginning to look at all of these activities as an integrated process. A big catalyst for this change in thinking was the SEC's interactive data management mandate, which requires U.S. filers to tag the data that they submit to the SEC's EDGAR electronic filing system with XBRL tags. To handle the increased workload, which, by the way, didn't come with an extension to the filing period, companies are finding they have to automate the production of these filings, and this means treating the extended close as an end-to-end process. With that all in mind, let's take a look at some of the findings of our research. When we last benchmarked the close in 2007, we found that nearly half, 47%, closed their quarter within 6 business days. In our recent benchmark, just 38% did. And on average, we estimate companies take half a day longer to close now, 8 days compared to 7.5. Monthly closings are taking longer too compared to 5 years ago. Only half close their months within 6 business days, down from 70% in 2007. And on average, we estimate it took companies more than 1/2 day longer to complete their monthly close as well. Quarterly or semi-annual closings tend to take longer than the monthly close because there are more steps involved in, for instance, doing allocations, adjustments, and accruals. Now, to see whether there might have been some external factors affecting how companies were closing, we asked participants if the economic, financial, and regulatory turmoil that's taken place since 2007 has had an impact on their workload in the closing process. About half said it did, and half said it didn't. Those that are taking longer cite having to do more internal levels of review, having to capture and consolidate more detail, and being more careful checking for errors. But even so, only about a third of the companies with a heavier workload reported that they needed more time to close. So clearly, although some companies have seen an impact to their accounting close workload, and some of these companies are taking longer to close, it really only amounts to a minority of companies. It may be a factor, but it's not the most important one. And there were some changes since 2007 that should have helped shorten the close. On average, compared to 5 years ago, companies use fewer ERP system vendors. 3/4 of them have central financial data repository, up from 70% 5 years ago. And fewer companies report that data quality is a problem, 25% versus 32%. And there are more companies with centralized accounting functions. So could it be with all the changes finance departments are facing, closing faster is less important than it was? Nope, it's taking longer to close in spite of the fact that people acknowledge the importance of closing faster. More than 8 out of 10 say it's important to close faster, consistent with our last benchmark. Fully 38% say it's very important to close faster, and slow closers are even more likely to say it's very important, 43% compared to 31% of those that close within 6 business days. So just about everybody thinks it's important to close faster, but why is it important? Well, 1/3 say it's to have more time for analysis and auditing, especially for companies that have to prepare external filings and financial statements by a certain date. Having additional time to craft a narrative or audit the results reduces stress on the finance department and may be a more effective approach. Another 27% say that it's important to get financial information out sooner, and a similar percentage say it's important to get managerial information out sooner. Only 10% think that it's important to reduce the time and money spent on the closing process. Incidentally, this is very similar to the range of responses we received in 2007. But it's worth noting that there were important differences between fast and slow closers. Slow closers focus on having more time for analysis and auditing and getting financial management information out sooner. Almost none of them think that reducing the time and cost of the close is most important. On the other hand, fast closers think that having more time for analysis and auditing is most important. Few of them think that getting information out sooner is the main reason to close faster. And 1/3 of them believe cutting the time and money spent is the most important reason. So I'd sum up the responses this way. Slow closers have very basic objectives. They just want to speed up their sluggish management and financial reporting. Fast closers are already there. They're getting this information to executives and managers quickly. Their focus is on higher order needs, such as having more time for more useful analysis and experiencing less stress, making better use of the resources of the finance organization. In other words, fast closers are able to focus on adding value rather than fighting fires. Fast closers, I think, are more effective and more strategic. So why hasn't there been any progress in closing faster? In fact, just the opposite. Why is it if almost everyone thinks it's important to close faster? Looking at nearly a decade's worth of data, I think the main reason why companies take more than 5 to 6 business days to close is, I'll say it again, poor management. Poor management of the finance department is the main reason for slow closes and the inability to improve results. Even though they may say shortening their close is very important, too many things get in the way of meaningful, lasting improvement. Even though they pay lip service to a faster close, these senior finance executives are not willing to make the necessary process changes or address the data management or technology issues that are causing their slow close. How to close faster? Well, let's start by looking at managing the closing process as a process. One of the more reliable ways to shorten the close is to make it a point to shorten the close. I know that it sounds obvious, but one of the best ways to start shortening the close is simply to be serious about doing it. In our latest research, 3/4 of companies that put a program in place to shorten their close reported a time reduction over the past 2 years. A bit more than 1/4 of companies that had a program in place achieved a 3-day savings. Only 15% of those that said they had taken no deliberate steps achieved a reduction in that period. So slow closers may have good intentions, but they take no concrete action to shorten their close. Fast closers are more likely to have a program in place to shorten the close. And while 54% of those that take a week to close have such a program in place, just 41% of those that take 9 or more days have taken methodical steps. Good habits in managing the close are one important reason why these companies take less time to close. Good habits reflect good management, in my experience. And by having a program in place to shorten close, I mean having a real one, with all the project management 101 trimmings, timetables, milestones, roles, and responsibilities. Is there a silver bullet out there or some secret sauce that can give your company a shortcut? Unfortunately not. The need to manage the process itself is reflected in the responses we get when we ask those that had shortened their close what steps they'd taken to shorten the close. And by far the most common way they gave was a very general controlling the process more effectively and consistently. In other words, a continuous improvement approach. The next most common was a more specific one, optimizing the use of journal entries. And typically this means standardizing and simplifying them, traits for just about everything that you ought to be doing related to close. This in turn means focusing on training people and establishing systems to support and automate as much as possible. Centralization or shared service approaches, which is another way of doing this, tends to promote consistency, efficiency, and faster, easier communications when issues need resolving. And its usefulness tends to be proportional to a company's size. Just one in 5 mentioned simplifying financial reports, automating reconciliations, automating payroll accounting, a long list of little changes. But I think that when they're made and continuously improved, it produces results. Process management is a key to shorter close. And here are some of the ways in which we recommend companies go about doing it. If your company hasn't already done it, document the process of the closing process step by step and role by role. Companies that are required to follow Section 404 of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act actually should have already done this. Done up at the process flow diagram, it can clarify roles and responsibilities and can be useful in spotting bottlenecks and other issues. Your organization may have already created one a while back or might have a process manual, but owing to changes, the official process manual may be littered with sticky notes that are designed to document those changes. Someone should have ongoing responsibility for keeping the process documentation up to date. And we already know that things don't go as planned, so it's important to document how the organization should respond to likely disruptions. Start simply, listing the most likely ones and the ones that have happened more recently. As new contingencies arise, review them immediately. Determine what was or should have been the best response. And even something as straightforward as publishing a 5 forward quarter close calendar can be important so that people can plan ahead and, in fact, have a better life-work balance. Especially in larger companies, it's important to keep a current list of contacts involved in the close and their contact information, including the hours when they're going to be available. Pilots have pre-flight checklists. Increasingly, emergency room staff have checklists, all because checklists work. They keep people focused on what has to be done and what to do next. They do a great job of substantially reducing unnecessary mistakes caused by overlooking and omitting some part of the process. The checklist should be time-dependent and indicate when each step must be completed. Now, the close is a process that manages the movement, analysis, and transformation of data. Data quality and consistency is a common issue in almost every data-dependent process or function. The reason is that most companies do a poor job of managing enterprise data. Data consistency, data quality, and data accuracy are also a function of spreadsheet use. The more a company uses them in the closing process, the bigger the problem. Data quality is an important factor associated with how long it takes to close. There's a correlation between the time it takes to close and data quality. Data quality is one of those issues that are either overlooked, they shouldn't be, or treated as a given, they're not. Companies that take longer than 5 to 6 days to close might find that a root cause analysis of data issues is in order. If it's a very significant problem, it's likely that it's going to take some time to sort out, but it has to be sorted out, and the sooner the better. Data management is basically a game of whack-a-mole. You're never really finished with it, so it's important that review meetings quickly identify data quality issues, and these are addressed immediately. And then there's technology, which can also have a major impact on how quickly your company can close. Technology is a key ingredient to closing within one business week, especially for mid-sized and larger companies. Today, larger companies, those with 1,000 or more employees, mainly use their ERP system or consolidation software to manage the consolidation of their accounting systems, a key part of the close. Only about 1 in 5 still use electronic spreadsheets. But the situation is different for mid-sized companies, those with between 100 and 1,000 employees, as we define it. About half use spreadsheets, 1/3 use their ERP system. Mid-sized companies typically have less complex financial systems than larger ones, and therefore historically they've been less likely to use consolidation software to manage this process. Now, especially if your company has more than a single set of books, you might find that dedicated consolidation system is a worthwhile investment. Companies that use them are the most satisfied with the results, with 78% saying they're satisfied or very satisfied. Companies that use ERP systems to manage their consolidation are almost as satisfied. But when we drill down to understand why they're not satisfied, it's usually because the business has grown complex enough so that their ERP system doesn't have enough of the features and capabilities to handle their increasingly complex demands. Companies that use spreadsheets are far more likely to be dissatisfied. 1/3 say they are, compared to just 8% of the consolidation software and ERP users. Closing is a time-critical, repetitive process that benefits from automation and demands complete accuracy. Spreadsheets were a big breakthrough in 1979. Today, they're the wrong tool for this particular job. Even if your company uses an ERP system or dedicated consolidation software application to close the books, it's likely that it's using spreadsheets at some point in the close. And here again, though, companies need to minimize the use of spreadsheets in closing. Companies that are the heaviest users of spreadsheets take longer to close. Only 46% are able to close their quarterly books in 6 or fewer days, compared to 59% who limit their use and 66% that use them only for complex calculations or one-time events. Sometimes companies become heavy users of spreadsheets in the accounting close because their consolidation system or their ERP system is older and can't do all the things that the newer ones can. Or it's because their ERP system can't do a lot of the calculations that are being done in spreadsheets. If so, you might want to consider newer, better software because it could be a very big help. And there's just not enough automation applied to this repetitive task. Few companies use automation to manage their closing process. The results show that only 6% of the participants said that substantially all of their processes and handoffs are automated. About half said that some pieces are automated, but more could be, while 40% have automated none of the functions. This is significant because automation has a direct impact on the length of closing periods. Organizations that have automated the most close sooner. 43% of those companies that complete their monthly process in 1 to 4 business days, compared to 27% that have automated some, and 16% that have automated little or none at all. Conversely, 59% of those who have little or no automation take 7 or more business days, compared to 44% of those that have automated and just 29% of those that have automated substantially all of it. Automation may be an important source of time savings for your company. Based on analysis of the data, we estimate that companies that have a high degree of automation in their closing process are able to complete their quarterly close on average 3 days earlier than those with little or no automation. In this case, about 5.7 days compared to 9.1 days, and even 1 or 2 days sooner than those with limited automation in place. Automation of this repetitive process points to the value of cutting the time between tasks and helping to minimize and maybe even eliminate the incidence of poor coordination. And I think these results point to the potential time savings that companies can achieve in the extended close, especially for those that need to assemble external financial reports. Companies can save considerable amounts of time and effort by using applications to automate the process of assembling regulatory filings, such as the SEC's 10Qs and Ks, or any other periodic financial report that requires assembly and integration of text and numbers from multiple systems. And speaking of XBRL, several years ago, the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States mandated the use of XBRL tags in companies' filings. Extensible Business Reporting Language, or XBRL, is the technology that's used to streamline and simplify the consumption of financial data. Tagging financial statements has added another task to the extended close period on top of the previously existing requirements associated with producing quarterly filings and annual reports. And as I mentioned, the SEC did not extend filing deadlines, so companies have had to figure out how to get this done, which comes down to either doing the work in-house using a variety of tools or outsourcing it to a service provider. In our latest research, we find that a bit more than 1/3 are doing the tagging themselves. 41% are currently using a service provider but plan to bring the work in-house within 2 years, and the other 1/4 of companies intend to keep using a service provider. My advice for the past couple of years, actually from the start of the mandate, is to bring the tagging process in-house as soon as possible. It's not that tough. It gives the company greater control of the tagging process. It's going to take less time in the long run, and it's likely to be less expensive. In fact, people who've actually done this will tell you that's the case. Moreover, the XBRL tagging mandate spurred the introduction of tools for complete management of the assembly of the filing document, including the tagging. And I recommend that every company with 1,000 more employees that has to prepare filings for the SEC look into these systems. Not only can they speed the creation of the filing documents and therefore speed the completion of the extended closing cycle, it's also going to be a whole lot more efficient than whatever you're doing today. So let me sum up by mentioning a couple of the next steps you probably ought to be considering. First of all, if it's taking more than 5 to 6 days to close your books, make it a priority to shorten your close. Establish a goal and set milestones. If it's taking 10 business days to complete your quarterly close, make it your objective to do it in 6 days within 4 quarters, 1 day per quarter. If it's taking longer, well, start by cutting a day per quarter, maybe even more. The point is that your timeline should be as aggressive as practical. Second, starting with the CFO and controller, make sure everyone agrees on the value of closing sooner and the department is committed to shortening it. Third, have regular reviews to identify slip-ups, errors, and other factors that are driving a too long close, and do this on an ongoing basis. Set up a rigorous process with roles and responsibilities for addressing each of these. This may be a whack-a-mole process at first, but persistence is going to keep the moles from coming back. Fourth, adopt a formal process for finding a better process and streamlining your close. Fifth, recognize from the start that it's going to take consistent attention and many, many ongoing small improvements to achieve your goal. Realistic expectations keeps discouragement at bay. Sixth, fix defects in your data and information environment. As I noted, this is often a hidden factor. This is likely to involve people from IT, so it's important to have an established working group to deal with this that includes both finance and IT, rather than trying to address the issues on an ad hoc basis. Seventh, limit spreadsheet use in the closing process. Everyone loves spreadsheets, but they can stand in the way of achieving a shorter close. Eighth, if you're not already using it, consider dedicated consolidation software. And if your consolidation software is 7 or 8 years or older, assess whether it still does the job, especially if your company has grown significantly, either organically or through acquisitions, since that consolidation software is installed. Ninth, increase automation, especially in post-close processes. And finally, 10th, if your company has to report to the SEC in the U.S., plan to manage XBRL tagging in-house. As I noted at the start, when we started this research benchmark program, we were hoping that the results would demonstrate progress, companies closing faster. Instead, we find that companies are taking longer today to close than 5 years ago. Our research shows that while some companies are able to close within a business week, half or more are taking longer. The slow closers have exactly the same characteristics as the ones that close within a week. They're in the same businesses that are similar size, same organizational complexity, same IT environments basically, yet some succeed in closing measurably faster than others. And when you control for all of these factors, I think the difference really comes down to good management versus mediocre or even bad management of the finance function. There may be many reasons why a finance department takes more than a business week to close, but in my opinion, there are no excuses. John, back to you.
Thank you very much. much. That was really enlightening, very interesting information, and we appreciate your collecting that and bringing that to us. As we do the changeover to the next speaker, I'm going to put out the first polling question. As I mentioned, this is required for folks who are here for CPE credit, but it's actually a general question, and it would be interesting to see the statistics across all of the participants in today's webinar. So even if you're not here for CPE, it would be great if you could take a few seconds to answer this polling question. And I'll give about a minute for that. Now, during our quick break here, I'd like to go ahead and remind folks that you can ask questions at any time via the question panel in your GoToWebinar control panel. And we encourage you to do so. We'll get to these questions when we reach the end of today's presentation. Also, I've had a couple people ask questions, and they may have joined late. We will be sending out a link to this presentation, so you will be able to download the soft copy via the Proformative website, so you will get that. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and close down that first poll, and we will go ahead into the second presentation today. And it's my pleasure to introduce Elizabeth Milne, who is a director at SAP. Elizabeth has over 15 years of experience improving software solutions for multinational, multi-billion-dollar organizations. Her finance career began working at Walt Disney and then Warner Brothers in the areas of consolidation, budgeting, and financial reporting. She subsequently moved to the software industry and has held many positions, including implementation consultant, manager, and a variety of other positions as part of the solution management team at SAP, Business Objects, and Cartesis. And with that, Elizabeth, I'd like to welcome you today, and please take it away.
All right, great. Thank you very much, John. So hello, everybody. I'm Elizabeth, and so what I'm going to talk through today is two quick slides to talk about the different challenges and where we want to get to for a fast, high-quality close. Then talk about different accounting and financial close solutions, so areas where you as an organization can focus to improve on your close. So I think it was very insightful, everything that Rob just shared. I am not going to do a session on how to manage better. That is not my area of expertise. So what my area of expertise is on if you do have good management and you are putting together a plan to close faster, where do I start? What's my action plan? Really, where are the areas within the close that I can start to focus in on to try to automate and centralize and streamline all those different areas that Rob was able to find in his research where it would help you to close better. So just from a high level, let me start talking about what the challenges are around a fast, high-quality financial close. So as you have different stakeholders who are involved, so I'm saying stakeholders and not shareholders. Those stakeholders can be internal management people, they can be audit, they can be your own corporate finance people, and then externally you've got different shareholders, different regulatory agents, and there's a lot of impact from all of these different stakeholders who are involved in order to get that information out to your shareholders. A lot of the struggles that people find with their close is the speed aspect that we talked about already, as well as compliance, being able to meet specific deadlines, being able to keep up with all the different mandates that are out there. Transparency. Transparency goes hand in hand with confidence, right? So that when you create the reports, you need to know where those numbers come from and be able to get back to the detailed aspect of it. So it's not only a matter of aggregating information for a financial close, but being able to disaggregate that number when those questions and comments then come afterwards. And then efficiency, which is something that Rob hit on quite a bit, which is being able to streamline that, being able to automate things and be able to take those spreadsheets out, take out those manual steps that really cause those errors and those challenges around there. So then in the end, the objective where you're trying to get to, right, is to get all of your stakeholders aligned and together, and then the results where you're trying to get to faster times, reduced costs, improved data quality, better audit trails. And then as a result of all of those things, what's most important there? Better informed decision making. It's hard to quantify sometimes on what is the dollar amount on making the better decisions, but sometimes perhaps it might be easier to quantify, well, here were the bad decisions we made because we weren't able to provide that financial information sooner and with more confidence. And then being able to do restatements as well once you come in with auditing, that's typically a number you can also quantify as well. And then once you get those numbers better with more confidence, and to the point that Rob was making beforehand, is that the quicker you can report your numbers with more confidence increases the confidence of your different stakeholders. So it makes you look better and more efficient if you're able to produce these numbers faster as well. So within my experience at SAP and the number of other software organizations that I've worked with, I've skipped the slide, sorry. I've worked with a number of different customers over the years who have been able to really get down to quantifiable aspects on being able to work with the things that you can quantify, whether it's not only the number of days to close, but then also, I mean, how quickly it takes you to produce the financial statements, also the number of resources that are required as well. So while quantifying this, I think, is fantastic and being able to see this, but I think a lot of the benefit then comes in to being able to make those decisions better, right? And avoiding making bad decisions because you're able to get that information to make the decisions better. So let's talk about the different ways in my experience that we've been able to parse out the different aspects of the accounting and financial close. So the financial close is a multi-step process, and depending on your organization, it can be more steps or it can be less steps as well. But this is best practice, is where we've understood from SAP to understand how to kind of parse it out and be able to dissect it in there and then be able to figure out, okay, well, where do I start? What are the areas that I look at within the accounting and financial close, and where are the areas for improvement? So first is the financial accounting. You've got a general ledger and subledger. So different people have different profiles on what this is going to look like. In some cases, you have one instance of an ERP system. That tends to make your life a lot easier. In a lot of other cases, you don't actually have that luxury, so you have multiple instances maybe of one ERP, or you have multiple instances of all different kinds of ERP. So that's the transactional aspect, and that's the core, right? That's the heart, all the information then that feeds up into your consolidation and your close process. So that first slice there is certainly an area that's sometimes a bigger fish to fry than some of these other ones that we're going to get to. So entity close management. Intercompany reconciliation is a big pain point, also entity close management. I'm going to get into a couple of those in a little bit more detail here as we go on. So the entity close is where your individual entities, they need to close their books. Once that's completed, then they either submit their data to corporate or they notify corporate that they're finished and they're ready to begin the consolidation process. The consolidation process, along with notes management, consolidation is around the numbers, right? Being able to do those calculations. In the simplest form, when I try to explain it to my nieces and nephews on what I do for a job, explaining consolidation, at the root of it is just the aggregation of data, right? You collect information from multiple sources. Now, once you're in the thick of it, you understand that it's a little bit more than just adding numbers together. You've got intercompany eliminations of investment, minority interest, blah, 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 right? So, but at the root form of it, that's where the consolidation is. That's all the data. And then you've got your notes management, which is all your MD&A analysis that surrounds there, right? Your management discussion and analysis. So all the verbiage, all the why, all the words to collect. And then lastly, you've got your reporting and analysis, so being able to produce reports, as I mentioned before, not only that show you an aggregation of the data, but also being able to drill down into that to disaggregate the data and understand where it came from. And then disclosure management. So disclosure management is how you manage your disclosures, right? And this is going to be the XBRL reporting that Rob had mentioned, as well as creating my annual reports, as well as, and a lot of the time when people talk about disclosure, they think of external disclosure, so XBRL, their annual report. But disclosure management is also your board reports, those internal management reports that you need to work through. And then the basis underneath all of this is the governance that goes along with that, the GRC aspect, the governance, risk, and compliance, right, the internal controls, and then the master data as well. So let's dig into a couple of these topics in a little bit more detail. Here I've gone through and talked about really, we've got compliance, we've got speed. You can see a lot of the different value points here on things, on areas there where you want to focus into, right? So each one of those 5 stages that I just talked to. So let's take this and then flip down just a little bit further and talk through a couple of those different boxes that we had in there and talk about best process on where you can go into. Start with the entity close, and then first let's talk through the planning, the execution, and the monitoring of the entity financial close, okay? So checklist, 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 Rob said, okay? As an entity, when you're doing a close process, one of the things that you want to do is have a checklist. Everybody's got a checklist. I need to book my accruals. I need to run my depreciation calculations. I need to do X, Y, Z, right? So as a best practice and an area to automate, there's a number of solutions that are out there better than Excel that allow you to go through and to streamline this, right? So governance and compliance. There's a lot of benefits and a number of the solutions that are out there that allow you to centralize and be able to leverage not only my entity close for this entity, but be able to use that across multiple org units. And then also give you a full audit trail, logging of the results, documentation, better than saying, well, let's look at this version of Excel compared to this version of Excel. Efficiency, being able to automate tasks. So whether or not you're in one instance or multiple instances, there's those solutions that are out there that can help you trigger a task. And then also have collaboration and workflow around it, such that when I finish one of the tasks in my close, that I don't need to go back and keep checking on it. There's solutions out there that can help you notify so that you know that XYZ task has been completed and it's time for me to do my ABC task right after that as well. So, and then just being able to monitoring the transparency and insight. There's so many better solutions that are out there besides Excel that can help you with trending to see how did my close go, and at an entity level, but also at a corporate standpoint as well. So if I'm up at corporate and I want to know who's closed and who's not closed, either from a geography standpoint, business unit standpoint, whatever it is, to be able to go through and have that visibility. So that's one of the areas that is I have found with our customers that most of them are using Excel, and there's a number of solutions that are out there that can really help you automate that process. Now, another one of the areas that people find a lot of trouble with is your intercompany accounting. Rob had also mentioned it's a process as well as technology, and that's definitely something that I've found as well, too. So being able to pull the intercompany reconciliation process before the close, so not waiting on corporate to collect all the data and tell you where you're out, where the different entities are out of balance, but being able to do web-based real-time reconciliation, and there's a number of tools that are out there that allow you to do that, is really an area that's it's a quick win. It's a process change and a technology change, but honestly, it's really more of the process change than the technology that's going to help you do that. So rather than waiting to the day of the close and depending on corporate, it's a matter of taking that out and pushing that responsibility out to your different subsidiaries so that they know that they have the capabilities to reconcile with each other, and they don't wait for Big Brother up here to be like, you're out of balance, but be able to have that collaboration aspect, being able to also use tools that have status reporting and email alerts that say, okay, somebody submitted their numbers and you're out of balance. And typically, if you address just the intercompany solution, it can be a quick win. It can be a rapid implementation. It's typically something that's a low total cost of ownership, and it's a really high return because it's a huge pain point. But leveraging technology along with improving the process is really an area within intercompany that's one of those quick wins. So corporate close. I've got planning and consolidation. Now, Rob talked a lot about the different people who are using consolidation solutions. I'm not going to get too much in detail. They can be very comprehensive, but they can be really big wins, okay? So depending on how your process is right now, I found it very interesting also that some of the most dissatisfied people were the ones who were consolidating using their ERP. And that's because the ERP is a transactional, usually IT-owned system. The consolidation solutions that are out there, some of them which also include planning at the same time, are all built for the business user. So the people who are running the consolidation, the finance people who really want the results, they need something that's familiar and easy to use. They don't want to have to go call up the guy who owns the ERP every time that they need to change in reporting. So it's a matter of being able to make that consolidation system be owned and operated easier to use than by the business user, as well as having solutions that are process-centric. So it's not only the technology, as we've mentioned, but the process that you need to improve. And the beauty is that the technology isn't going to make you run better. It's being able to leverage that technology and using it to make your processes run better is really where the big benefit is going to come. And then from a planning and consolidation standpoint, the more that you can become unified, centralized from that standpoint, it really is where you get more of the return on your investment, lower maintenance, simplified deployment, and those types of things where you can share that master data and that type of information. So in this case right here, talking about the faster legal compliance, one of the main things I wanted to point on here as well is that there's a number of prepackaged information that's out there from a number of different vendors. And having that prepackaged information, it really reduces the time to value. Being able to have templates that you can start with. Most consolidation systems and pieces during the close, they start out and they're toolkits, and you can build from them. And based on whatever your requirements are, you can build whatever you want. But if you work with a vendor where you have the ability to have templates and have prepackaged information and be able to leverage best practices, and it's not only software vendors, but also your partners as well, too. So implementation partners that are out there who have done this time and time again, it's a matter of looking at best practices. Now, Rob also mentioned the fact, oh, well, you have those types of controllers and CFOs who say, oh, well, we've always done it that way. Well, maybe it's time to think about how other people are doing it and really figure out the best practices and being able to support a number of those types of initiatives where you can reference other people's best practices and really improve upon it. So lastly, let's jump in and talk about reporting and disclosure. One of the areas I'm going to focus on here is disclosure management. So as I mentioned in the beginning when we were talking about the overall aspect of it, right, disclosure management is the XBRL reporting, that external reporting, be able to create an annual report, but also being able to create reports for board reports, so internal reports and those types of things. The disclosure management solutions that are out there are becoming more and more popular, and it's a matter of getting the last mile of finance is what a lot of people refer to it as, right? So it's where you have specific numbers that you've done through all of your consolidation aspects, right? And I've used my consolidation solutions, I've collected all of my notes, but now I have a team of people or a couple of people who are going through and doing iterations of your final report. A lot of time it's in Word and in Excel, but the versioning of that, using that manual process to do a save as, using the title of the file name, V1, V2, and those types of things can be very manual and very prone to errors. So there's a number of solutions that are out there today. This is a great area where you can increase a lot of your productivity and reduce a lot of the errors. Being able to have these, to be able to accelerate the generation of your disclosure management, being able to have one single view of the data for the organization at the end of the day with all of those reports, being able to optimize the time where you get from the close where not only your entity's closed, not only is your consolidation closed, but then you need to do your digital disclosure, right, being able to submit it out. Being able to facilitate the collaboration tools that are out these days are fantastic. I mean, you can either use with the disclosure management solution or in conjunction with those, or being able to really eliminate a lot of that email back and forth and consolidating it into one place. And then in-house production. Rob said this in one of his very last slides, is being able to not have the need to outsource this stuff anymore because it's so easy to do it inside. So that's kind of the whole process, right? To look at it, chunk it out, figure out what works for you, figure out where to start. Some people have a problem with consolidation. Some people are, disclosure management is a challenge. Some people have intercompany is not a problem for us. We don't have a lot of it, or it's already done automatically somewhere else, right? So you need to figure out for your best practices where to start. And here's the way that we parsed it out at SAP to really address that and take a look at that. And then there we go. And final, wrapping up, I think now we have time for some questions.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. That was great information and well delivered. Appreciate that. Before we get to the questions, I'm going to go ahead and launch the second poll question for the CPE folks. And once again, if you're not here for CPE, please feel free to take the poll. And that will be the first thing we take a look at when we get to the Q&A. Now, time is running out on us here, so we'll try to move pretty quickly through all of this. And I will work with Elizabeth and Rob to see if we can get the questions answered, probably on Proformative, where everyone can see the answers after the event, because we have a number of questions here. Pretty certain we're not going to get to all of them, so my apologies in advance. I'm going to go ahead and close down this poll in just a moment. So if you're going to get your vote in, get it in now, please. And also, if you do have any questions, please ask them. Even if we don't get to them right now, we will work on getting you a response from one of our two wonderful panelists today. So I'm going to go ahead and close that down. We're going to go and take a look at our first polling question. And I'd like to ask Rob, once we get this up on the screen, what his thoughts are about this. So once again, the question was, what is the primary system you currently use for consolidation? And we have a lot of medium and large size company folks who are on the line today. And it's interesting, Rob, that Excel is still #1. What do you think about that?
Well, it's terrible. and why, why kill yourself? Why make your life so terrible that you're using Excel? Excel was a great tool when it was first introduced in 1979 for just about anything in the finance organization. But over the last 30-some-odd years, a lot more has come out. Now, Excel is unparalleled if you're doing, ad hoc, personal kinds of work. But it is exactly the wrong tool for doing anything that requires collaboration and that's done repetitively, that requires a process that needs to be managed. And I just think that the results of our research just point to why is it that it's such a disaster. So get rid of it, replace it with something else.
Gotcha. And Elizabeth, is this fairly common when you guys are working with clients? Are you typically, most frequently, moving them off of Excel, or are you moving them off of another ERP system or another consolidation system?
No, I think that these numbers are reflective. Is that it's really a mix a lot of the time. Excel is certainly out there more than we would like to see it, or maybe as a software vendor, we would like to see it. But but no,
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's definitely out there a lot. And people, especially finance people, they just love their Excel. So.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. It's got its place and time, I must say, but some areas it certainly does not belong. Now, let's take a quick look at the second question. Which area is the biggest bottleneck in your accounting and financial close? Rob, if you don't mind, I'd like to start with you again on this. What do you think of these results?
I think they're actually pretty, plus or minus. This is pretty much what you run into, and it kind of points to what the next step is, which is how can you go about eliminating these bottlenecks? What are the root causes of them? How do you solve them? Now, some bottlenecks just require work, but others actually require a little bit of preparation or a little bit of data management or a little bit of systems work to just get rid of the root causes.
Gotcha. Elizabeth, anything to add on that front?
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with Rob. And I mean, a lot of it's the processes. I mean, you see that it's the financial accounting aspect of it, which is the most is interesting. That's just part of the processes and the management that you need to put in place to be able to improve on that.
Yeah, I mean, just even something as simple as saying that you're going to simplify the process, because I think accountants have a tendency to want to overcomplicate things, and you have to ask yourself as you're looking at some of these accounting issues whether in fact the things that you're doing are materially useful. If they're not, get rid of them.
Right. Good advice. Okay, at this point, I hate to say it, we are right up against the end of our time, and we do need to take care of a couple of quick items. So let's do that and make sure we get everyone out of here on time today, and then we'll work with today's panelists to get the questions we have queued up answered. It'll either be offline or on Proformative. When we close down or when you independently leave today's webinar, you'll be presented with a quick survey. We would love it if you would take it. It's 60 seconds. It also includes the ability to ask to be connected directly with Elizabeth and or Rob if you would like to connect with them directly. And obviously they are just absolute gems with great experience in this area. And if you would like to connect for follow-up questions or conversations, we can facilitate that very easily in that survey. Also, you'll see at the bottom of the slide, if you have any questions about CPE credit, email Tanya Walsh. She is our CPE credit manager at Proformative. And now let's go into some quick thanks. Thanks very much to SAP for allowing us to do this and so many of the other things we do at Proformative completely for free for all of our users. It's absolutely wonderful to have their support and all of the intelligence that they bring to everything we do, such as this webinar. Special thanks to Elizabeth and Rob. Great time for both. Great job to both of you. We really appreciate your time and insight. Thank you so much for joining us today. And finally, a thanks to everyone who took an hour out of your very, very busy days to join us today. We really appreciate that. We hope to see you again either at another event, online or live, or at performative.com. And with that, we wish everyone a great tail end of the week, and we'll see you next time. And I will go ahead and shut down the webinar at this time, so you will see that survey popping up in just a moment. Thanks again, everyone.